Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 22nd Governing Board meeting for the Glendale Elementary School District. Please let the minutes show that we have all five board members present and accounted for. Ms. Sagata-Jones, are there any changes to the agenda?
Good evening. President Martinez, members of the board. Yes, we'd like to remove Special Recognition Kiwanis Student of the Month 4A, and we'll bring that back to you in October with 2 students.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move to adopt the agenda, noting the change.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Please join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. All right, thank you. Moving on to the first item on our agenda, we're moving straight into study session. Ms. Sagata-Jones, if you please give us an update on the strategic plan.
Yes, President Martinez, members of the board, you have 2 documents in front of you. You'll have one that's a markup, and then you'll have another one that is not a markup. What we have, and it's a revision, what we have done is as we review the plans annually, we began that process. We wanted to look at where we were with changes with our curriculum. The new curriculum adoption needed to be, make sure that was an emphasis for us, as well as what we learned from decompression and declining enrollment, and see if there were any areas of focus we needed to change within the strategic plan. We do that through committees and groups. We get representations from teachers, from administrators. Typically we do students, but my first STAC meeting this year was an NFL kickoff, so we'll get some input from them. And then we do from our parent group as well, that has parent group and community groups on there, and that is shared out. And so what you will see in the markup document, that we thought it was important because we are into the new adoption of materials, that Educational Service would conduct a curriculum audit review and that will happen throughout the school year. And then also we believe, still coming in from COVID and starting back into in-person, we would like to focus again on trauma-informed practices, and that's been taking place with our CELS, and those CELS lessons take place at the beginning of each day. And then again, really the focus is on that positive behavior, intervention and supports through our MTSS teams. So those are the focuses that we felt need to be highlighted in goal number 1. The status there so far this year, staying the course with the implementation of our professional learning communities. We have provided through Ed Services a menu of those professional development to sites, and then of course the implementation of newly adopted curriculum. So each part, I think what we need to understand about each of these goals, that the strategic plan is a living document. This is part of our infrastructure. This is what we do every day. It's a 5-year plan. We make those adjustments as needed. As you know, when we talk about my progress report as a superintendent in November, it's all aligned to the strategic plan. When our principals set their goals, they're aligned to the strategic plan. They each have goals that fall under these, and their evaluation as well as my evaluation falls under the goals of the strategic plan. What principals also do this year with their, because we know we've made some revisions to it, in particular with the curriculum pieces, is that their principal reports for me, they do them monthly. Their principal reports, they report the progress of each goal of the strategic plan to me with any challenges and celebrations they have in each of those areas. So that's what they're doing for me. And we had our first, and then what we've done this year is I conduct the one-on-one meetings with principals and discuss those things. All those have been completed thus far. We'll do that every time there's, when their strategic, or their principal reports are due the first of each month. So then I meet with them and we go over their progress and what, any support that they need. And then my departments, they do that, they meet with their teams as well for goals. If you look at the stewardship goal and resources, I think you'll see the changes. We want to ensure and optimize all of our resources to be responsible stewards of human capital. I think some of those changes for us really is making sure that we wanted to look specifically at just some wording, making sure we talk about grounds that are safe and secure, just not buildings. We really want to enhance the property, the aesthetics, because we do have older schools and we still want to attract our students and our families, but also our schools are embedded within the neighborhoods, and it's important that we maintain that property aesthetics. So that's been included in there before. We're going to continue to market and recruit and retain students. That's critical for us to do. We've done that through so many different venues this year. You know, we use obviously the STAR, but we're out on so many different social media platforms, and so we'll continue to do that. The status, just a quick summary, presentations of the aggregate expenditure limit and various internal and external stakeholders, and secure the ESSER funds received. And of course, we've done the demographic study. I think the AEL, you'll see that come at the next board meeting. ASBA sent you the template for the boards to adopt, and that will come in October. I've presented on AEL. Mr. Bergen has presented on AEL. I've signed letters to send to legislators on behalf of the district. I came from a meeting yesterday with Valley superintendents, mostly on the west side, and I was at a superintendent's meeting again this morning, half the day, with Valley superintendents, mostly on the west side, but in Phoenix as well. And the conversations are about the AEL and what we need to do and how do we work to make sure our legislators understand the importance of funding. In the superintendent's group, you know, districts on the west side, we all have different needs. Tolleson, you know, is growing. You know, Avondale, those districts far west are growing. We're not, so there's different needs. But that's what we've put our effort in as, and the focus there, again, has been on the AEL. So we want to make sure that that was captured in our plan. We always want to make sure that's there. Staffing and student well-being. The conversations around this one was simply that from the original plan, that we don't think we identified all staff, and it was more geared towards students and not geared toward our staff. So those changes were made there, and make sure that we included just the word staff and we weren't just focusing on students. And really want to make sure we are doing that celebratory learning to empower our students. We know that's critical. And then the comprehensive wraparound services to support students through the systems of care was added. And we'll get that on an agenda soon. As you get in your board updates, there's a lot of things that are happening at systems of care going on, and those partnerships are continuing to grow. As I mentioned last time, you know, Molina Health gave us a donation of $20,000. That's never happened in this district. So thank you, Dr. Lafitte, and your team for that. Very exciting partnership with Salad and Go that took place across the valley. If you visit Salad and Go all summer, it was donating $1 to Children's Hospital, Phoenix Children's Hospital, or to local school districts for supplies. And so we just received Saturday 250 boxes of boxes that contain school supplies that we'll give to any new students that enroll. Salad and Go, thanks to Mr. Parcells and Dr. Lafitte, said they have never worked with an organization that was so welcoming and kind, and we appreciate that. They really bring in their own volunteers. And so I went over there last Friday, and they were setting up, and then on Saturday, I don't remember the exact number of employees or volunteers, 240, 140 volunteers, but they had quite the assembly line. And so it's great that we are having those types of partnerships with them through systems of care. If you look at the employee quality, attract and retain highly qualified staff, we know that we have to maintain a competitive benefit package, and we believe the benefit package we do have is competitive and one of the strongest ones that we've seen compared to surrounding districts. Annually review all salary schedules to align with the education market. We know that that has to be on the forefront after coming out of the decompression study. That has to be addressed, and we don't want to lose sight of that. And then build and maintain that applicant pool. We will continue to do. We've increased district's presence on all job listing websites. We've hosted virtual and in-person job fairs. We facilitated decompression study. We have increased and enhanced our higher education partnerships to build and sustain the workforce pipeline. We're working, and those are the conversations with my colleagues as superintendents yesterday and this morning, is we're all thinking outside of the box of ways to bring in staff, not just teachers, but all staff members. I think we all realize that we are in a different situation, and that has to be reflected in our strategic plan, that classrooms and what instruction looks like and staffing looks like is going to be different than it ever has been because of the shortages. And so that's critical that we pay attention to that. And then we get down to family and community partnerships, engage parents and partners in their child's learning to increase opportunities for volunteers. That's critical for us. I met with the parent group, and this year we have our parent advocates. They really want to be in front of staff and in front of parents, which they are through their coffee talks, but in front of staff to share what's happening so that they can understand more from teachers and classified staff what they can do as the advocate to help get volunteers in. What's on your table is the little sunflower seed bag. A couple of years, or maybe it was 4 or 5 years ago, I can't remember, I started the baby campaign, boom campaign. That I think I got a couple of babies out of that. The parent advocates told me we did get some babies out of that. But it's really, what are we going to do to draw people in? And I think we have to make build relationships with the community and their families. So during, I have to think of events where we have a lot of families. And so the football season's going on. There's always families out there. And if you watch your kids or grandkids with football, somebody's always has sunflower seeds. So I had this brilliant idea of why don't we just give them sunflower seeds and put down volunteers. I personally went to the game the other day and talked to parents that were there, asked them if they would like to volunteer in our classrooms. This is how they can do it. Also asked them if they knew anybody or themselves that needed jobs, and some of them, Adriana was with me, and some of them were, yes, do you need custodians? Yes, we do. Oh, can I volunteer? I'm just a parent. Yes, you can volunteer in the classroom, and here's how you can do that. So hopefully we'll get something out of that, but I think we're going to have to be creative because the staffing just isn't there for us, the workforce. The workforce isn't there. With that, we've got some new partnerships this year that we hope we'll be able to extend through the Super Bowl's coming in February. The NFL has reached out, as we just had that event last week. There's another event coming on in Menzendick. Menzendick has been chosen to participate in a Cardinal training camp campaign. They're going to come out and do some training activities with kids, just fun things with football season. They've selected Menzendick for that. Smith School's been selected by another organization through the NFL, where they're going to actually, through a lottery, select 2 homes to redo. And then also they are entertaining a proposal and what can they do to renovate any part of Smith School. And so they're willing to do that. So, while the NFL is here and it's a one-time thing here, we want to be able to build those partnerships that are lasting. So because we have, we are downtown Glendale and they're looking for downtown Glendale. So it's a great opportunity for us to expand those partnerships. And so that's what we're doing as well. As I said, with the strategic plan, this is what we do. This is our business. These are the goals that we live by. And we do progress monitor them throughout the year. As I said, I do that with my principals. The expectation is, and which is followed out through my assistant superintendents, they do that with their teams as well. Principals set their goals, and their leadership teams set their goals, and teachers set their goals, and everything lives through the strategic plan. Questions that I can answer?
Well, thank you for the update. It's good to see. I can't believe this was, I think we're halfway through this plan then, right? 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm. We are. Yes, it started in 2021 school year. We're in the 3rd year of this plan.
It's amazing how many things have changed in just a few short 2.5 years already. Are there any questions regarding any of the points of the strategic plan from the board? All right. Thank you, Ms. Sagata-Jones. Moving on to the next item on the discussion or on our study session, a ridiculous amount of policy advisories.
Yes, Mr. Martinez, members of the board, I thought since we were doing a study session, it's just easier to go over the policies. I know you all attended SBA, and you're seeing some of these policies come through. I think we've brought most of the ones on the advisory except the parent volunteer one. There's a couple we didn't bring. We're not ready to bring those yet because we haven't defined those, and we need to work through that process. So the ones we didn't do, we need a process for visitors in schools. We also need the library materials. That policy is not coming forward either because we need time to really work through that. And so those committees will start to be built to do that. And then the parent involvement in the education piece, we need to set up some committee works to get that done so that those will start taking place within the next few weeks. So we want to bring to you, though, the ones that are listed on the agenda. I'm going to make sure I don't get on the wrong one, Liz, if you'll just guide me so that, because I have my notes on all of them. So we'll start with JRR, and that's just student surveys, that one, the changes simply are, that we cannot conduct that without being approved by the superintendent, but more importantly, the employees have to obtain the written authorization from the superintendent, and the rules regarding those surveys. We need to talk about what we can ask students, what we can ask, and then notifying the parents about that. So we'll be making sure we're adhering to that.
Does the opt-in portion for parents end up in the regulation and not the policy?
I'm looking for my regulation, so your question is what? I'm sorry, Ms. Smith.
Well, I'm just looking at the policy, and I haven't gone to the regulation, but I had, like, the opt-in portion, is it in our regulation?
I believe it is. I'm looking at the regulations.
I thought wait a minute. The approved and authorized to the superintendent school may not be through permits.
There's a
There's a JRRR in there. Service
requires-
shall provide, and a parent has the reasonable belief that the district is violated. Opt-out provision is in 15, yes.
Where you have to take a survey to say it's okay to take a survey?
Yes. Students not participating in survey must provide with an alternative educational activity shall be counted toward it, yeah. The parent must be provided written notice. Yep. So we haven't decided what we will do with we always do the end of year student survey, and we haven't determined that yet. All right. And then my team, if any of these are yours and you want to jump in, please feel free to as well. IHAMB, Family Life Education. we've talked about this through the other policies. Students to use shall not refer to students or use sexually explicit material in any matter except as provided by the governing board in sex education programs. Questions on that one? Dr. Lafitte, anything in particular you need to mention in that one, or are we?
No, nothing additional to add to that.
All right. Then the next one goes to Jlcb immunizations of students. Those are, the following are not required, so those are the ones, HPV is not required, and then COVID-19 not required. Questions on that, on those? And the only other thing that changed in that Jlcb exhibit is how it's reported. You can just report it, click the link, and it takes you to it. Jlcc, communicable infectious diseases. The only new in there's a district or charter school may require that a mask or a face covering be worn by a person under 18 years of age, only with the express consent of the person's parent or guardian. All right. And then Jlcb, staff health and safety. And that's the prohibition of COVID-19 vaccination and a mask face coverings. Just stating we cannot require a mask face covering anywhere on the school district's premises except where long-standing workplace safety and infection control measures unrelated to COVID-19 may be required. We currently do have staff and students still wearing masks. If we have extra masks and a student's parent has asked for a mask because perhaps the one they sent was dropped or whatever, we will give the child a mask if there's a parent consent for it. If we still have them.
I have a question. So if we have a student that does ask for a mask and
They have to call the parent and get permission.
parent, okay.
Do we have anything in our system yet that allows that we can easily access that information?
We don't track that.
Okay.
No. Nor would I recommend that we do that.
Should put it on the that medical form and get ready. I can give your kid cough drops or Tylenol or a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't track it. But DIA accounting system, this one. Mr. Berrigan, do you have anything to say about this one? I mean,
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Sagata Jones, the DIA before you does not apply to the district. The district currently does its own accounting. But to give you some perspective, there are districts that rely heavily on the Maricopa County Superintendent's office for some of those services. And there's good reason to be supported by the Maricopa County Superintendent's office. There are other districts that are just large enough that they can manage their own. So in our case, we cut our own checks. But there are districts out there that rely on the county for services that that they need. In this case, it does not apply, but it is one of the newer policies that's before you.
Then why do we have this policy? I mean, we don't have to adopt this one then.
no, we don't
So
have.
it's kind of silly to have it if we don't do it.
Yeah, we just brought it because it was on part of the policy advisory, and we let the board make that decision.
And Mr. President, members of the board, Member Smith, that's a great point and comment. I can tell you that as we were reviewing them together as an executive team, those are the conversations that we had internally was, why do we adopt, or why does the board adopt any policy that it may not apply? And I think that's a fair question and comment on your part.
Yeah. So we will not, this one can be removed, but we always bring it because it's part of the policy advisory.
Just like, it seems like a lot of things these days, there's always things you think are not going to apply to you, and then something changes at the legislature, someone changes at the Supreme Court. And we had this conversation a year or two ago when we were talking about sex discrimination based on sexual identity, and everybody says, no, that's covered under something else, and then it turns out that may not be the case anymore at the way things are going. So, and right now, there's currently no mechanism to remove a district from the accounting responsibility program, but yet.
But but our intent was just to bring it so that you didn't think we just you get the advisories, so we didn't think we just picked and chose which ones we wanted to bring.
But there's no harm in adopting it, right?
No, there's no harm in adopting it.
But I feel, that it's a better practice if you put in our policies what we actually practice instead of what we don't practice. So that's my opinion, I mean, this doesn't have to, if you want to say what our accounting system is, it would have been better, for anyone that's, wants to know if it's written what we actually do in our district instead of adopting what we don't do in this district.
There's some policies that we have adopted that don't apply. Part of it applies and part of it doesn't apply based on age. We have some of those that are in policy, but this is strictly does not apply. So it's up to the board what you want to do with it.
Well, I think other policies, maybe that, that should be a practice, that maybe we just, adopt these things to what's really going on in the district instead of what isn't going on in the district, I just think it would be better, than reading stuff like what, when we went through all these policies and we just, adopted everything, we didn't really, discuss, what we actually do in the district. We just basically adopted the policies because that's what, ASBA had, presented to us.
That could require going through all these policies.
Pardon me?
That could require we going through all the policies.
I think that's a good discussion, a good argument as to whether or not we even need to bother adopting policies that don't even apply to us. But what it comes down to is who makes that decision? Is it the board? Is it the administration? Is it ASBA? Then is it more time than it's worth? We've already spent more time talking about DIA policy than we will ever talk about again. All right.
Next one, IHA. This is September 11th, and each year shall be observed as 9/11 Education Day. So that's what this one is. It's kind of like when we had the Sandra Day O'Connor Civic Celebration Day or 9/11 Education Day, those are added. And that goes into effect next year. This is JLD school counselors and psychologists. This is not a new policy, but for some reason we did not have this adopted. So, and we do use these services. And I don't know why we hadn't adopted it before. Next one is on hazing. They just changed some definitions with hazing.
I have a quick question on this one. Because it does, in the blue, it says an act in violation of section 13-1215 or 13-1216. Are those new laws that we won't see in the book until?
No, those are in there. We have them.
You have them, okay.
Yeah.
Because, the link, it doesn't have it on the website yet.
Liz we pulled them out, and I'll give you guys copies of these. It's the,
Because now I'm curious how extensive their list.
it's a page and a half.
Great.
So it's extensive. Okay, then The hazing has to be displayed, so make sure all that's taken care of. Next one, JJIA, is intramural sports, which is new.
Is that something that we do in the district?
Well, we do it with our athletic clubs, so we would have to, with our sports clubs, so we would have to, we don't have to do intramural? Oh, no, we're not. We're not intramural. We just play within each other. Yeah, sorry.
So then we're interscholastic?
No, interscholastic, you mean through high school interscholastic? No.
Okay.
AIA is no. Mm-mm. I think I'm confused on this one because the interscholastic sport is there too, and it's dealing with male, female, and co-ed as well. And when you look at the definitions, unless it's been changed, I'm not sure that they don't apply. I think they apply. They do apply. When you look at the new definition, am I correct on that? I think I'm correct. Thank you. I have a book that says, everything you knew, you were right. Who gave me that book? Somebody gave me that book. Everything you were right about. No, yeah, it does apply. Yeah, yeah. Because it goes to ours. Yeah. I know we don't do, you were thinking, Ms. Bartels, of the AIA, which is the high schools, but these do apply to us. So intramural and then interscholastic does as well.
Okay.
Is it just because the definitions that are in here, is that what you're saying?
Yes. The only thing we don't have to follow is AIA, because we're not high school. Okay? All right. Then transportation services, this doesn't allow, Mr. Bergen, we don't do this, but is there any chance in which we might? We had this conversation in executive team, and Dr. Lafitte and I think we're right. Mr. Bergen thinks he's right. And the other two didn't vote. So go ahead, Mr. Bergen.
Mr. President, members of the board, whatever the superintendent said, I'm sure is accurate, so I'm not going to doubt that. This last legislative session, there was an attempt to provide additional flexibility as a direct result of the driver shortage. I think I'm still trying to understand, and I think some of my colleagues around the state and their transportation directors are still trying to understand how this actually provides relief under the current driver shortage, and we're not sure that it's clear to us because we don't see how this is beneficial. However, to the point that President Martinez made, should something surface later that we could capitalize on, then it could be a viable option. But we're not sure that we're clear on how that provides additional flexibility for us, considering some of the federal constraints that are required for drivers with CDLs.
Yeah, but aren't CDLs required for specific size vehicles? So is that maybe the loophole that this creates is, it's a smaller vehicle, therefore somebody that has a clean driving record and a license can actually drive then?
Mr. President, members of the board, Member Bartels, in the actual statute that we looked at, we believe it then does it like a circular reference back to federal law.
Okay.
And that's where we're not clear on how this is beneficial. I think there was, in good faith, attempt by the sponsor or sponsors of the bill to provide relief. I'm not sure if that really accomplishes that because we're not seeing that quite yet. So again, if there were some future, perhaps federal legislation that loosens some of those regulations or federal requirements, perhaps there could be an opportunity. But I can tell you that we've had, some of my peers and I have had this conversation as recent within like the last 2 weeks again. And then touching base with our directors to see, hey, what are we not understanding? And we believe that there's like a circular reference back to federal law requirements on that whole CDL.
Okay.
But the recommendation is that we do these two. The next one we also had a lengthy conversation about is JF student admissions. And it really refers to those who reside in unorganized territory or may apply for a certificate of educational convenience. So we don't believe that applies to us, but I don't know if there would be a circumstance in which it would.
What is
That's-
that?
Dr. Lafitte knows this one by the back of his hand.
So, and just to hopefully clarify it a little bit here, it's looking at unincorporated areas, but also the distance that a student lives from their school, from their home school, and what that is. And so, where we're having some of the challenges as well as, well, what would constitute that area, especially for us where we don't have any unorganized area within our boundaries. And so we've kind of been going back and forth on that, and we know we're looking at legal guidance to see what the ultimate outcome would be. But right now, there's still some interpretive differences on what this actually means.
We just don't want to be in a situation in which we've violated that.
I'm curious as to why it's in policy anyway, because the CEC statute already kind of covers this, and it's been unchanged for quite some time. And we don't have any unorganized territory for Glendale, so the only thing that would apply would be those like group homes would be
Homeless,
applicable.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. group
Because their
homes,
parents would reside in a location outside of the
of the
district.
district.
So those in group homes and stuff could apply for CEC.
Potentially. But, Mr. President, members of the board, I do believe those group homes, the group homes obviously, for the most part, probably resided within Glendale. I think you could conclude that some of our parents and children that are in that situation perhaps generally also reside in Glendale. But it's there, should that be a statute that we have to abide or comply with? Is that your take, Dr. Lafitte?
Yes.
That's our take, we believe. We agree, though, some of these things should be in policy. I have a list, if you'd like to go through them.
Well, I'm just curious as why it's in there, because I deal with CECs at my office all the time, and I don't recall ever getting one from Glendale. In fact, a vast majority of school districts will not submit a CEC.
I believe it's a small percentage statewide that probably do
Yeah.
the CEC.
Right.
All right, cool. Moving on.
School ceremonies and observances. This is about the school district and charter schools shall set aside at least 1 minute, but not more than 2 minutes at the beginning of each school day for students to engage in a moment of silence during which students may not interfere with other students' participations. A teacher or other school employee may not suggest the nature of any reflection in which a student may engage during the moment of silence. Each teacher of a class in which the moment of silence occurs, pursuant to the law, shall encourage parents of students in the class to discuss with their children on how best to use the moment of silence. This was presented to us at ASBA, and they modeled it incorrectly.
What do you mean they modeled it incorrectly?
Because they told us that it could be a minute or two, no more than 2, and they're not supposed to tell me what I need to be reflecting about, but they told me to pray for people.
I didn't get that too.
So, specific people they told me to pray for. So we have to be careful with our teachers that if children ask, well, what do I do during this time? It's through the parent. It's not through the teacher. Go ask your parent. Go ask your parent. Yeah.
But ask when you get home.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think most people are familiar with moments of silence in kids, and So I don't anticipate, I don't know if it's going to be a problem or not a problem, but we have made sure that our administrators know that it's a moment of silence. It's to be anywhere from a minute to no more than 2.
So is there regulation with this one too? Or is it just the policy?
Just policy, we didn't put regulation.
So
Yeah.
does that apply to us at the beginning of the school board meeting where we have the moment? Do we need to extend that out to a minute, or is that just for the school day?
It's school observance and, no, and it's each student. It's geared toward the school day and students, not to us.
It's the beginning of the school day.
Yes.
We're at the end of the school day.
It's not here.
Do it
We
right
found a loophole.
do it right after lunch and just tell everyone be quiet for 2 minutes. Let the teacher rest.
Okay, and then IMB is teaching about controversial, sensitive issues. It just changed, has great responsibility, not influence, but responsibility, and they change formation of values to education of all students. And those are the ones that we have for you. So on the agenda, you'll see them as first reads, and then we'll bring them back for second reads, and then I'm not sure, it will not be October 6th board meeting. For the remainder of those, it will more than likely be the November, December board meeting. You'll receive the remainder of those, in particular the one for the library, because we need to think through what that process is going to look like. Parent involvement in education, it would not be difficult to do, or visitors to schools. It's going to be the library materials selected and adoption, what we do with that, so that we have a system in place for that. So we'll get those to you in a timely manner, but I think Ed Services is going to need time to do that. They've already started working, so I'm saying no later than December, and perhaps it could be in November.
Any questions on the policies presented? All right. Thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda, are there any calls to the public this evening? There's barely any public here, so seeing none. We move past special recognition, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a board member wishes to have pulled for discussion? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Moving on to our first action items, new policies, second reading for Jlcb. Ms. Sagata-Jones.
I am sorry, I'm struggling with asthma today. It is recommended the governing board approve the second reading and adoption of the new policy Jlcb, referral to other agencies as presented. Dr. Lafitte can answer any questions.
Are there any new questions regarding this policy? Is there a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt the second reading of policy Jlcb as presented.
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Ms. Pimentel, how do you vote?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. Moving on to the second action item, new and revised policies, first reading. It seems like we just went through this. If there are no additional questions, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt the first reading.
Are we leaving NDIA accounting system?
I'll make a motion to approve the policy advisories removing DIA.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Wilson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, moving on, the discussion item, the governing board self-evaluation. Do we have,
I got a blank copy
I have the
in
blank
mine.
one.
I don't have it.
Yes. I think you guys did splendid. That's there it is. Does everyone have it up?
Yes. Go to a different item and then go back to that item.
And you should now have two documents under there. Got it?
Let's just refresh that.
You got it, Sarah?
I don't know.
Okay. So we can go through, we'll go through section by section. It looks like we're all in pretty much agreement from what I see so far. If there's anything that a board member would like to point out or comment on for section A, board relationships with the superintendent, it looks like everyone believes we get along just swell. So thank you, Ms. Sagata-Jones. Moving into section B, board relationship with the community. The one dissenting, Ms. Bartels.
The way this is written out, it, enacts policies supporting the efforts of the administration in helping the people of this community to have the facts about their schools. Sometimes I think we do this simple, easy way of expecting people to always log into our board meetings or go to our website. And sometimes I think we do need to put those multiple layers out there just to make sure that our community does know what we are going through and hopefully how they can maybe help us.
What might be those multiple layers? Because I think we do that quite well through social media. We have at all school sites, they have their parent coffee talks. We have parent advisory groups. They've all have their site councils will be up and running. I don't know any other way to get it out.
I know.
We put it in the Glendale Star.
Right. We can't make somebody actually pay attention to information faster if they're just not going to do it in the first place, and I understand that. It's just when it's something that is a really major thing, I think we need to be more cognizant. And I'm just speaking from my reflection of, when we had to vote on closing schools. As much as we did talk about it, it still seemed to blindside the schools that were impacted. And I don't know how we can do a better job in the future moving forward because, we're an education system, we should learn, and that's what I'm just saying.
I don't think I would agree. I think especially when you're talking about things like the schools closures and the community meetings we did, the communications that we reached out to the people in those affected areas. Ms. Sagata-Jones was talking about the social media. I get so many notifications more than any other business that I like or follow on Facebook that there is a new post from the Glendale Elementary School District all the time on Facebook, on Instagram. I think the only thing we're lacking right now is a TikTok. If you would like to do some TikTok dances, Ms. Sagata-Jones, I would totally be into seeing that. But other than that, and the Twitter, there's always stuff going on Twitter all the time. So I think there's an effort being made to put out, and like you said, you can throw all the information out there. You can't force somebody to consume it. You can't
Right.
force somebody to look at it and understand what's going on. They'll just, with our sometimes our goldfish-like attention span, we'll look at it, and 3 seconds later we're moving on to something else. But that being said, I'm open to any suggestions we might have to be able to, short of going out and knocking on doors, for everybody. I'm not sure how much more we could do.
I look back of, with what Ms. Martels was saying, where I saw more of the blindsided type of comments actually came from our city council members. And, so, maybe, that's where we're lacking, is that we're not giving them a presentation or the information. They seem to come back with false statements about, what's going on and what's happening. And so, maybe that's where, they have a different influence on our community than what, that what we have. So that's something that came to my mind as Ms. Bartels was speaking.
Well, I attend Kiwanis meetings where we've done presentations. I attend HEJMA meetings, the local businesses, where I've done presentations. We are part of the chamber where I presented to the chamber. So at that chamber, city council members are there. So as Mr. Martinez says, we can present the information. What they do with it is up to them.
Mr. President, members of the board, I would also expand on Superintendent Sagata-Jones's comments. The superintendent, through her leadership, were heavily involved in some of the events by the Chamber of Commerce. Within the last month, we attended, the executive team attended city council meeting, and there was recognition by the city council, one or two members, that we were in the audience and we were there to hear a very particular agenda item that related to our district or in partnership with our district. And I would also just maybe provide, there's Glendale Glitters when that was full effect. The staff was participating in that, and we're interacting with our community and highlighting the good things about our district and the reasons why they should attend. But also, on a daily basis, the administration and the staff were down the street eating at the local restaurants and engaging when they see our badge, when they see our Glendale Elementary polos. So it's not limited to some of the things that you might just think about presentations, but in everyday engagements, as we're just doing our daily routine, we are interacting with our public and letting them know, hey, come work for Glendale. I remember at the Kiwanis bus drive, we had, not only were we trying to encourage people to donate or provide us supplies, but I remember seeing a principal who was trying to get a teacher. And they exchanged contact information. So within our own community, things that may not come to mind are happening on a daily basis. So I would encourage you perhaps to also take that into consideration as you think about some of these items before you.
Okay. I think overall, we've done really well, and we've gotten a lot better at communicating, especially when we had the first round of closures. There were things that we did different on the second round of closures. So you're right. We are a school, and we do learn from past instances. And I think, especially with the more recent involvement with a lot of the stuff that's going on with the Chamber of Commerce, gotten a lot more involved with the Kiwanis stuff. So I think we're getting better. Yes, I think you're right. I think we were kind of blindsided by some of the city council comments that came in during that first round of closures. And thinking back on it, I'm not sure there's much we could have done short of sitting them down one-on-one and forcing them to listen to us. But we will continue to try our best, as always. Moving on to Section C, board relationships between members during meetings. All seem to be satisfactory. Like to thank all of you for exercising the decorum and the amount and the conversations that we have during the board meetings, that we all do not take things personally. I hope not, and I think we all get along quite well. We're going to miss you next year, though, Sarah.
No, you won't.
I have a feeling she'll still weigh in.
It'd be nice to have another guy on the board. All right, moving on, Section D, Board Relationships with Staff and Personnel. Ms. Bartels, can you tell us a little more about item 2? The board members make every effort to become acquainted with the personnel of the district.
Well, I think that still lingers from COVID. So, we now see people in our meetings again, but, being able to actually see and interact with some of our staff, there's teachers that, you got like a 10% chance you might actually know them. You may recognize their face, but you won't have interacted with them for a couple of years.
And I was kind of borderline when I hit that. It was like, I really haven't gotten the chance to get out much, and there was COVID stuff, and then I have a busy life outside of here, so I don't have a whole lot of time. So I kind of missed that. Short of like Christian is the only person that I could certainly recognize easy from about 1,000 feet away, who's not here today. So I just want to point that out for those watching on video.
Well, it's because we started early.
He's driving.
Yeah.
Is he driving a van where it seats 11 people, but no more than 15?
I think on this one too, it's kind of borderline for me. It's like, I don't even know who's principals at what school anymore. I'm kind of,
I have a recommendation. When you come into the board meetings, when they're there, instead of sitting up here, go to them first. They're required to be here. Afterwards, I would recommend that. Also, attending events at their schools. That's, to me, how you best engage with the community and the staff is to be there during their STEAM nights, during their dual language nights, during their literacy nights and math nights, because they get to showcase their work. The community is there. You can interact with the community. One of the things that I enjoy, because I want to get to know every teacher as well, and every employee. For example, when there's a Peter Piper night, I've gone to Peter Piper with a staff that's hosting it, and I sit down with the teachers there, sit down with the parents are there. Just like the other day, going out to the football field. I enjoy watching the sports, but also I enjoy talking to the families. And you can also engage with administrators are required to be there. A lot of our teachers are there supporting their kids, and they love for you to stand next to them and have a conversation with them. So I think we need to capitalize on the opportunities that are already there. Ms. Bartels, you are always volunteering places. You have an opportunity when you're volunteering to talk to those staff members and meet those staff members as well.
Yep.
So I think we have to take advantage of the opportunities that we're given. And of course, we can always get better, but I think we need to make sure we're taking advantage of those opportunities.
Understood. Thank you. Moving on to Section E, Board Relationship to the Instructional Program. This seems to be the area where we kind of diverged more than any of the other areas. Ms. Bartels, I don't want to seem like I'm picking on you. But you want to start us on the conversation here?
Well, I think actually, because I know Ms. Smith wrote down on some of them, and some of them we do have those interactive nights that we are able to go to. But I think we just need to be more proactive as board members, asking for those, updates, how these programs are going out of me, because not every board member will get to even their open houses that they have at times.
I think we said that we would commit to a program review of these for the innovative. I think that was brought to our attention, and yes, we will. That we have our data, not officially yet. We're still waiting for our ELL data to come in, but we will. Educational Service will be providing an update and of a program evaluation of how we're doing with each of these. Also thinking of what are the new innovations that we need to have so that we're retaining them. So you will receive a program review of these.
Ms. Smith, thank you for your notes. Is there anything you want to add to your comments on here?
I think that part of this, my comments is like, data showing Verizon, say, are we doing this Verizon? Do the parents like it? Have we asked, at these schools if they really like it? I don't really know. And, I know I have had parents talk to me that are in there that don't like it, but, that's who I'm going to hear from, not, what the majority, if they really enjoy it. So, is it worth it? My thoughts are, sure, the dual language is bringing in more students to our district, but, where are the academics with the dual, dual language, if we're, having that educational, gap, from COVID, where, is it worth it, at this point? I don't really know. I think it is, but I don't know.
That will come out of part of the program review. I think that's something that we need, not just dual language, but STEAM. You pick what we have, the acceleration programs as well. The academics, unfortunately, with the data, we know we were faced with a year, and we know we're going to see a dip. We know that. So, but I think we need to look at, are we truly implementing those with fidelity? Verizon schools, they have a lot of, I don't know that I've heard people that didn't like those, but we can give you an update on all those schools and those projects as well, because I do think it's important to know if things are effective, or we just, I don't want to slap, we're an academy of some type if that's not what we really are, because I think that's what has happened when everybody's competing, but I don't want to do that. So I think it's important. That's why we said we come back with that program review, because if we're really not doing it, then don't call it that, and then really call it what we're doing. I do want to say, and I think Deanza, Ms. Baker, you're in the audience. I was at her site the other day, and there's a partnership going on there where we're with ASU, I believe, and we'll be able to do coding there. And to me, not to slap on academy, but I think if you have a coding academy, that's an attraction for us, and the whole room will be dedicated to that. And a lot of the curriculum can be that, and that's part of that through that Verizon with her and Dr. Observances have been working on. So I think that's those things we need to capture on, but make sure we're truly doing those things,
Ms. Wilson, was there anything specific you had in mind?
I would just like to add, I feel a little disconnect with the schools since COVID. It mentioned in here periodic visitation in the schools, and I never agreed with visiting the schools during the school day. Walking into a classroom, I know how that can be annoying. But
Ms. Wilson, what we talked about in Ed Services, because we're really trying to think of ways in which we can, market that. And so Ms. Adigan and I were talking in Ivana the other day that we want to go in and actually start doing these video clips of whether it's small group instruction or whatever that is that promotes the district, and bring those, to the board meetings for people that can see exactly what's happening in our schools, but also turn that into the marketing as well. So you can get a glimpse of it. We'll bring it to you. And then at the same time market that. And I think that's another way. Also, again, it's getting out into those events and seeing what's happening, because that's when they showcase really their true work. But we really do want to give a glimpse of what's happening inside our schools. There's a lot of things we have to be careful of. We have people that cannot be photographed, and we have to be careful about that. And so, but we know who those members are. And so we'll be careful to do that. But I think it's important that we start producing these videos and getting them out there. That will give you a glance, as well as the community, and those, even though we don't have an audience necessarily all the time, we can put those out there on YouTube for people to see what's happening in small group instruction, or what's happening at the Verizon school, or what's happening at the STEAM schools. And I think that's just another way to get the word out of, all the great things we're doing here in Glendale. So that is on our project list to do.
Yeah, that'd be great. But I also, way back when I was still teaching, They used to do school visitations. I couldn't always make those. So those of us that couldn't would go in and after the school day and sit with the principal, and they would, talk to us about what was going on, take us on a little tour, and also talk to us about what wasn't working. So, those are really kind of good conversations to have, and it gave us an insight as to what was really going on in the schools. Plus, I know that we did some visitations with Mike too, and showing us where the buildings were having problems with
Right.
that. So those were all really good things and since COVID, we haven't really had that. So
But also that gives you the opportunity to engage in a conversation with the principal when they're not in the moment or in that. And we're happy to look at what that platform might look like for you.
Would it be, beneficial? We have fewer schools now, maybe, a school presents, at a board meeting, about what's going on in their schools, something they want to highlight, the children, that could be a way to have something, brought to us as a board.
you don't get that one-on-one, that intimate, conversation that you can have. And
Yeah. I think we can capture what's happening just through start doing these video tours what's with the schools, but then looking at specific or having those conversations with the administration. We can do that. Look at what would be the best platform to do that in for you to build those relationships and know what's going on.
Actually, to Mrs. Smith's point, I think that's a really good idea, that if we have some kind of a forum where a school is really proud of something they're doing, where they can put forth maybe, and I hate even saying the word, an application to say, hey, this program's really working great, can we present to you? I think that'd be some kind of thing that maybe we're not looking at, but is working well, whether it's parents volunteering in the classroom and helping preschoolers or the kindergartners or something. That would be kind of nice.
And I don't disagree with that, but I'm going to take you back to there are a lot of things they put on at their schools that highlight the things that they do. And it's tending those school events that are going on and engaging with staff and community members. I think that's where you, as board members, get to see really what's happening at individual sites, is when you're engaging in those activities and having conversations with staff who love to showcase the work that they do. I mean, they're proud of it. I mean, I see you engage when we have the arts, when we go to the art show, we all like to go. The teachers are excited to show what they're doing. We talk to families and that, but that can also happen during a STEAM night, during, a tech night, during a literacy night as well.
Okay, so moving on to part two, there was also some disagreement, but the board attempts to gain information from the community pertaining to instructional program needs. I know we just talked about the policy regarding changes for surveys, and there's legislation that's going to affect that as well, so I'm sure that will have a pretty decent impact on how those surveys happen. So I don't want to beat this too much into the ground, but is there anything specific that came to mind for the board members Ms. Bartels or Smith or Wilson?
Well, I know I had commented at the end, I didn't attach it right there, but basically it was taking advantage of our survey, whatever survey we do, whatever group we're, trying to get feedback from, to make them very meaningful questions, not surface level. That way, if there is something, I know we can't change the pay scales anytime soon, but if there's stuff that we can do in a more timely manner that we can actually change somebody's mind from making that decision, do I stay here or do I leave? Looking at that kind of collection of data and trying to, be a little bit more responsive with it and see what we can and what we can't do. Picking the top three that we can actually do something with to hopefully make some positive changes.
My thoughts were, I'll just go to Verizon. You know, if you have a survey, do you feel like your kids have too much screen time? You know, I mean, that would be something to find out, you know, from your families. I'm like, do you like this or do you not like it? You know,
Yeah.
just something, just something specific. You know.
I was scrolling. Hold on, give me a second. I lost track of where I was. All right, it looks like
Wait,
we're
you
all...
forgot me?
Got to jump in there.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just, you know, I don't know how to go about that, but I just know that we need to get some feedback from the community as to what their needs are for instruction. You know, could be some great fine arts program that they would like to have.
I hear you. And no, another venue we use, and perhaps we haven't communicated that well enough, but all of our schools do coffee talks, and that's when they talk about curriculum, what do they want, you know, what do parents want, and so principals do have those conversations. Also, through Title I, there has to be those conversations have to take place with the Title I plan, and that's through those meetings as well, and they have to get input. So I think we just have to be creative. You know, what do we think? What are those things that we think community may be interested in? And principals are really good about sharing with us what comes out of the coffee talks. But if we're asking for innovation type things, that's a simple question you could put on a survey and ask. I do think we need to start thinking, and I was in a meeting, I think it was yesterday, and there was a concern among superintendents about the performing arts and can't find any music teachers, and what are some other ways in which we can do that. So we were talking about doing some partnerships with some of the universities and their current band students, and having them come in and do groups or after-school groups for us, or just engaging students into the importance of music, but also starting up just little band clubs or music clubs that universities are willing to partner with. They say that universities have some of the largest marching bands, and they believe that their students would come into elementary schools when off their schedules and help teach courses, you know, or fill in and work with students as well. We've talked about it for many years. Ms. Wilson and Mr. Bergen knows that, and I remind him of that all the time. That I know there's a piece of land which I would like a performing arts school on, and I think that is a big pull for us as well. It's a matter of how can we pull that off, and what does that look like. But definitely, we've not lost sight of that, and it's truly important to us, because I think that's so important for kids.
I do, and I think that if there was an actual performing arts center, that would draw in teachers rather, you know, they don't want to necessarily teach in a classroom type setting, but to do
At a
something
performing
like that would
arts
be
center.
attractive. And then maybe getting back to those coffee talks, if maybe we could get some information from there, maybe on just it doesn't have to be at a board meeting, but some kind of information.
Through updates, we can give you that. Also, our family advocates, they have their meetings with their parents and what's happening there, and they hear about things. So we can also provide that through board updates as well.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Moving on, item 3, we all seem to be in agreement on, so we'll move on to F, board relationships and financial management of the schools, which skipped on down to item number 2, board requires the proper accountability for the expenditure of funds in the district. Ms. Smith, do you want to comment on your notes?
Let me read my note. Yeah, this is just, you know, my note really says, you know, what my direction or my desire would be, you know, as a district, is that, you know, when we, you know, vote on our budgets, that we know that they're in a line with the strategic, instead of like have the strategic plan in front of us, make sure that that when we're voting on it, that everything is there. And then I also feel that the community should still just be more involved in the budget process. It's just the way I feel about it, and I just feel that the community's not involved. To me, it's like it's not just our parents. It's not the people that are in the school. To me, the community is also our business partners that are our partners that should be involved in it. And I just I feel like the budget it just comes to us as this is the way we do business, and I feel like that's not where we're at right now. I think things need to change, and there needs to be more of a focus, because when you have cuts, that's what you have to do. You have to look at where you have to cut and where you need to improve. And if our major focus might be teacher retention, then maybe we need to put more money to our teachers, and maybe we cut somewhere else. That's where I'm at.
I don't know whether I agree with that take on it. In fact, I would probably go the opposite way, because I truly believe there is not a business in the state that has to be more transparent and has to jump through more hoops than a public school district. They get audited every year. They get their budgets published. Not only do they have to publish stuff in a local newspaper, it gets published on ADE's website. That information is available on the district website. That information is available for people for the asking, not only just on the budgets, but on things now like the curriculum stuff that comes through. There isn't another business that has to be as open as a school district in Arizona. So that information is available to see. On the flip side of that, yeah, I could see the point that maybe businesses and maybe some of the community aren't involved in some of the budget making decisions. But to be honest, I'm one of those people that I will leave those decisions and how some of those decisions are made to people who have expertise in making those decisions. I could never do a school budget. I can read it, I can look at it, I could figure out, okay, what's the general gist of it, but I do not have the expertise to build a school budget from the ground up. I do not have that sort of knowledge in me, and trust me, I worked around that crap for a long time. And it is a business and a mindset all its own, and there are people that specialize in that, and I would never second guess somebody. Yes, I will ask them questions, I will ask for clarification, but I won't second guess a decision that they made based off years of experience and their knowledge of the subject. Just like I would never second guess why a teacher or why did we pick a particular math book over one over another. We hire those people to make those expert decisions for us. That being said, how would you suggest that we make that so that the community is more informed about those decisions, knowing that that all that information is already available? Is there something else you think we could do? Is there like a public forum where we talk about budgets and the AFR? Because we do that in the board meetings now, every time that comes up for revision or adoption. Is there something else that you're thinking you have in mind that goes beyond that?
I think there's different ways that it could go. I mean, I think that you could have, budget committees, that are included, with people from outside of the district that are in here and have some of that expertise. I do agree, that that the information is out there, but I really think that there, needs to. That's what I'm saying when we talk about the strategic plan. Again, I'm like, if our need is that we are really low on our teacher retention, I'm saying, as a district, we need to put more money towards our teachers because that's what they're complaining about, and, like I said, so how do you do that? I'm not the expert, so, they do a great job, balancing, the budget that's all there, but there are 50 priorities and maybe we need to focus on one, that's what I'm saying. Like our first focus, this year is we're going to, do our teacher, decompression or our staff, decompression. Those are just, examples of things that we do. And I don't think, that when the budget comes to us, as a board, when we're saying this is our number one priority, that, we want to make sure that that money's in that pocket. We don't do that at all. It just, comes to us, here's our budget. And it's a great budget and they do a great job with it. But, I don't think that we set as a board, are a good example of what are the priorities are, of what, we feel that we should do as a board. And so, I mean, they say they need a curriculum adoption. Okay, we approve that all the time. But, what do we do, to make it a better process?
Mr. President, members of the board, if I may, to try to bring and put things in perspective. If you take whichever version of the strategic plan you want, and I'm going to kind of pick on the one that says that refers to employee benefits. I think that's a great example of that. It's in your strategic plan, and if you value the things that are on this document, that is what we're working towards every single day. The trust board plays a key role in accomplishing some of these strategic priorities of yours. You have approved of this. We've spoken about it. We've talked about it. And as a reminder, as a small example, for 8 consecutive years, employees on the medical have not had to pay more in 8 consecutive years. That is work that is reflected in the budget that you get multiple times and in the AFR that align with your strategic plan. I would also add, today, your administration spent about 3 or 4 hours talking to attorneys, financial advisors, Fitch, which is a rating agency, Standard & Poor, and they asked 3 hours worth of financial questions about the district's enrollment, solvency, some of the overrides that you have approved going to the voters. We have maintained an investment grade rating, which is good credit rating for a district, and you haven't been downgraded. That's an example of how your strategic plan, because of revenues, because of addressing facility issues, because of the capital lawsuit, because of the trust board, have all aligned to your priorities. And we demonstrate through our financial statements, through our some of the board action, the trust board action. They don't just take my word for it. They are vetting the finances of the district every time we sell bonds. And you a couple of meetings ago approved for us to move forward with that. That is a lengthy, comprehensive program or process, and you haven't been downgraded. And we're happy to perhaps connect those dots a little bit better so that you can see how those have aligned to your priorities.
I think to what you just commented, because when those things come at us individually, we see them at that moment. But when we look at that legal document, which you do a great job on, you present, where our revenue stream or lack thereof has impacted us. We see that at that moment. But like you said, with regards to our benefits, or, let's say we do have revenues that we can impact salaries, even just simply putting that on that screen at that, I think because we see it throughout the year bit by bit, sometimes it's hard to connect that with that document when we're sitting there doing our legal responsibility, which is to approve that budget. And it's easier to see, we're focused on decompression, and this is where you're going to see it, is this line. if we're, the benefits, we're seeing a savings, and that's where you're going to see that over on this line. And I think, for me, that would be more helpful.
Mr. President, members of the board, what I would also have you consider, as you have goal 1, which is student academic success. Sometime last year, I think it was in December, the administration took a recommendation for textbook adoption.
Right.
That aligns with your the academic success of the district. That is one of your priorities. And so whether it was ESSER money, however we got there, we're delivering on those priorities on a daily basis. We're working towards that. The decompression study, we know that revenue is an issue for us. We're declining. From 2014 to 22, we've lost just under 3,700 students. I really want you to think about the loss of 3,700 students. And we haven't riffed, have we? I mean, if that's not fiscal good management, I'm not really sure what is. And it aligns with the retention of your quality staff. There is work to be done, and I think as the superintendent mentioned at the last meeting, we don't shy away from our challenges. They may be unpopular in many times, but we're going to continue to draw a plan together to deliver on that and to address those issues so that the district can be sustainable over the next 5 and 10 and 15 years. We're not under receivership. That in itself aligns with your priorities. And if you look at the question right above the one we're discussing, it's interesting to hear that. I'm going to pull it up. We have policies and we have processes and we have interactions with the board on the management of our district's finances. And we've taken, we'll take constructive criticism. When we do the call to the public, when we do the AFR, I think Mr. President Martinez pointed that out. We're happy to elaborate on that, whether that's the investment in additional devices so that we're, addressing the instruction portion. Those are all priorities that align with a lot of the goals that are before you. So again, just a different perspective on the discussion and how that relates to the strategic plan for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Berrigan. Also with that, as we brought the strategic plan back now and made some revisions, and it specifically in there talk about decompression, I remind us of decompression. We have a employee shortage in this district. We also have decompression that the biggest gaps were not just in teachers' salaries, they were in administrative salaries. Also on the classified staff. It's in every category of employee in this district. There's a gap, there's a deficiency we need to address, and we know that. And the priority has to be, all employees, but the priority is how do we address decompression so everybody benefits from that, and how do we do it in a timely manner, and at the same time remain financially solvent, but also at the same time, we cannot do something that is not sustainable. It has to be sustainable. I can bring a decision and say we're going to give everybody a 20% raise, and I can convince you that that's the best thing to do. We're going to retain every teacher, every certified staff, classified staff, every administrator, because we're going to give them a 20% raise, and we're going to put it in the base. We could have, Mr. Berrigan can make that happen tomorrow. One time he can make that happen, and that's it. And then you're going to go into receivership. I will not do that. I would never bring that recommendation to the governing board. I get other people take risk like that. That's not a risk you take. I guess I'm more concerned, whether I'm here or not, I have an obligation while I am here that, and when I do leave, that I leave the district in good hands, and it's financially solvent because I owe that to this community and to this staff. And that's what we have to remember. One-time money is one-time money. Sometimes it's kind of like as simple as when you win the lottery of $50 or you get your tax return of $1,200. It's a one-time fix, and you can blow it however you choose to blow it. But I'm not going to blow one-time money to a community that deserves so much better, and our staff deserves so much better. We talk about, I understand where we are on our base pay, and we're working towards that, but we also have a quite healthy compensation plan for our staff members, and it's comparable to anybody's. And I think we need to remember about all those things as well. That is something that we are proud of. That's something that we work to maintain. But also, as you said, in 8 or 9 years, they haven't had to have an increase. Also, within the last 5 years, I understand that money has not gone to the base, but everybody's got a 9 to 10% increase in pay. I think that's something that is a priority for us to help retain. And how do we retain that? We're smart enough to know it can't go in the base, but we know that we can make it happen right now if we keep it out of the base and put it into stipends. And I think, I get it's not ideal. I understand that. But, that's the world we're living in right now. And we'll continue to do our best. But I do think we have set some strong priorities by focusing on, we closed 5 schools. We're committed to doing the decompression and looking at what that is. So I think we know what priorities are, and I think we do our best to meet those priorities. And so far, I think we've done well. Mr. Berrigan sat all day as he said, in his taxation meetings, and I sat with him the half of the day, the last half of it when I came back. And the questions that they ask and the amount of work and data that it takes to do that, that's why we call him Mr. ASBO International, because of the skill that he has.
I just, I want to say, I don't ever feel that the priorities aren't, looked at. But what I'm saying is, like, I'll just, I'll just go back to, ensure, your medical, dental, and things like that. But, that is business as usual, but are we asking our employees, like, would we rather have, whatever, $5, increase, on our medical, or higher deductible, and then have a higher wage? Those are the type of things, that I think, that, should probably, come out of, your meet and confer type of things, and find out, what do our employees really want? Do they want this, or do they want, more money to be available for the base? That's really, like what I'm saying. I'm like, I know that these things that you're doing are good, but is it what the employees want? So we may say that we want this, but do the employees, really want this? So that's all that I'm saying. I'm like, there is no way that, we can always improve on things by listening. That's where I'm saying is, like, as a board, that's when we say, hey, the priorities, that came, we need to make sure that these decisions that we're making as a board are in line with what came from meet and confer, what came, to us from the budget, what, came from everything else. That's all I'm saying, is that us as a board, we should do a better job of making sure, that we are following this plan.
Yeah, Madam President, or Mr.
Ms.
President.
Valdez has something to say.
Board Member Smith, members of the board, and Mr. Martinez, for at least since I've been here the last, and I believe prior to me as well, every year we do a survey with all staff for meet and confer that breaks down just exactly what you just described. And it goes to every employee in the district. And then as a meet and confer team, we go through that data, look at that data, and then we start our conversations going with departments now as well, getting feedback from them. And then that's how we continue our conversations during our process. But that survey goes out at the end of October, beginning of November, so we have all the data when we start up in December.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mrs. Valdez nailed it. I think that was just kind of just a refresher that when those items come before you, specifically to the trust board, I think the last several years, they've concurred with that. So I think to her point and to the issue that you've raised, that happens when they present to you, which is they've concurred with that recommendation.
I think Ms. Valdez also has been conferred, works hard, and they do spend time in determining what those priorities will be and have those conversations, and that's what they bring to us. So, again, thank you for that.
Okay. Any other comments on that one? Okay. So moving on, next item, the board justifies funding to maintain a high-quality educational program in the district. Ms. Smith, you just kind of notated same reasonings, so we'll just stick with that.
There's no more?
Huh?
There's no more to add?
Okay. All right, moving on. The board keeps the community informed about the financial needs of the district, our needs of the district. Ms. Bartels, did you have anything to comment?
Well, in this regard, it's almost like we have to be vulnerable and say, you know, this is our reality. And we do it to a certain level. I don't think we necessarily bring them in to also get their feedback and say, okay, how can we all work together to improve situations? You know we need more students, but we also need more staff. We also need more funding. But then there's other stuff that, you know, whether it's a parent volunteering that can help us. You know, there's opportunities out there, and I don't think we tap into them as much as we could.
Did you get the seeds?
And I would like to say that on that piece, we're always room for improvement. I will always say that, and we'll always do anything else we can. But I can't tell you how many times in the last couple of years, myself and Mr. Bergen and my executive team have presented about the budget, the finance, the academics in this district to the community, to the business organizations. We do that. It's in our reports. We'll continue to do better. Our parent advocates, our coffee talks, principals are responsible for interactive action plans through Title I, where they actually ask where that money should be spent with their communities and with their parents. So I understand we can always be better, but I just want you to know that that does occur, and if we need to communicate that better, we can communicate that better as well.
I think sometimes we need to, the bigger question is just we need to ask them for help, not just on bonds and overrides, but just help on a daily basis. I know, and I see this always on social media too. You know, how to help your child with reading, how to help your child with math. We're going to have this interactive, you know, so you can work better with your kid. Even the social emotional learning aspects, you know, how to help your child cope with their feelings better.
Ms. Hadegi, would you like to respond to that with the new positions that we have out of ESSER money, please?
Yes, so I know you guys are aware with ESSER 3 funds, we're in the process of, well, we have names already, we just need to plan a training for our parent academic coaches that we're going to have, and, you know, bring parents in to make sure that we can provide them with some courses like exactly what you're saying, like how do you help your child read better, how can you help them with math. Additionally, I know through our language acquisition department, our director there is working with her leads to provide some evening courses, hopefully through the systems of care, where they will provide specific supports for our English language learner families and parents on how to help their students at home with learning a second language. So I know that, you know, we've offered courses in the past, but that's just kind of what we're doing for this year. On a reflection point, I wrote down for myself, you know, to maybe offer some additional things online that parents can access more readily if they're not able to attend some of those courses. So that's definitely a reflection point for my department.
Thank you.
All right. Next section of the self-reflection is actually a bunch of free-form questions, and just kind of looking at the answers. I'm sure you all have kind of skipped ahead to kind of look. It looks like we're pretty much all on the same page. I see a lot of declining enrollment, getting students in, class sizes, funding, things like that. Is there anything any of the board members would like to point out that they feel probably strongly about? All right. See, I like working with people that are all on the same page. All right, list any weaknesses you observed in the operation of the school system. A couple things here and there. Ms. Bartels or Ms. Pimentel or Ms. Smith, is there anything you would like to? I'm not really picking on you. Your name just appeared. It appears alphabetically first, so.
No, I do think, we do a great job of sharing information out. Just think, under the circumstances, our financial situation, we just need to get better information back and then work on how to improve from there, where we can. Because sometimes it's just the smallest change can make the biggest difference.
I did note, for those of you who are not familiar, the need for a BPR of existing processes. That is a business process review, which involves usually somebody outside of your system to come in and take a look to see what it is that you are doing and try to find ways to fine-tune the efficiencies in which you are doing it. And I see this happen lots of times at other places, and obviously I try to not get too involved in the day-to-day activities within the district, but having a third party or someone from outside your circle of people that you work with be able to look and say, have you thought about doing this, or have you thought about doing this? It just seems like a way that we can try and get a little more bang for our buck for certain things. So nothing specific.
President Martinez, members of the board, we did do that. We were committed to looking at transportation and what can we do better with that? We had a third party come in and gave us recommendations. We just received that this week, Tuesday. And so we do agree that we'd like to see third parties come in as well and from there look at it through their lens. So thank you.
If there are no other questions, moving on to the last one. Yes, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I apologize for all you people out in the audience. It's had to sit to like an hour and a half of this, but here we are, the last question. List any significant accomplishments made by the school system during the past year. And we're going to go around the table for this one because I believe we should end on a happy and positive note. So to go out of order, Ms. Wilson.
I think what sticks out for me is the ability to stay financially afloat during all the school closures, the declining enrollment, the shortage in staff. It just, we're still in the game. We're still there.
Yes, Ms. Smith.
I just put on here that, having this system of care and then having one of our closed schools be, a preschool was, it's just a great way to, make a good of something that was thought.
I'm going to skip you, Brenda. Ms. Pimentel.
I agree with opening of the system of care and the preschool services at Desert Garden. I think that's, if we have to do anything, we need to repurpose what we have. So I think those openings have generated a lot of questions from the community. I've gotten a lot of those questions and have actually been asked, hey, how can I help? And I give them a phone number to call because I'm not the one that can necessarily make that decision. Implementing the new math and reading program, I'd actually like to hear more about that and how that's going once, I guess, the school year is over. But I think that once we bring something in new and updated, it's only a benefit to our students. And then the dual language program, that is always just a shining star, I think, in our district. We really do a lot of work. Our community sees that, and I appreciate that.
Ms. Pimentel, if I may interrupt, thank you for mentioning implementation of the new math and reading adoptions that we have. Just on Monday, is it Monday, Sienna? Monday, Sienna and I and Norma met with a group of teachers from my advisory group, and we got their feedback on what's working well right now, what are some of the next steps and challenges, and that's spread out throughout the year to get that feedback as well.
Wonderful.
As well as classroom visitations.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Bartels.
Well, they already said it.
Wait, you're in line.
Yeah, but he's the president. He'll be the last one.
El Presidente gets to make the last say.
No, I agree. This board had one of the hardest decisions any board ever has to do when you're looking at closing down campuses. But I am so proud of this district in finding two extremely meaningful ways to repurpose those campuses. One being for the community in a broader sense of those supports that you might get a little bit at the school site, but you may need a little bit more in depth. But also being able to expand our preschool by using one of those campuses for that and giving those youngest of our community a really strong foundation for when they start kinder with us.
All right, thank you. And as for myself, I noted the smooth transition for the school closures. We had a lot of changes, and not just the ones that were actually closed. There was a lot of boundary changes that took place this year. I'm sure there are some situations where students had to make new friends. Maybe the people that were a couple blocks over now go to a different school site than you did. So you make some adjustments, and I think we learned a lot from that first round of closures, and we were able to implement some changes and make some decisions that makes everything move so much smoother this year. So just thanks to everybody that was involved in getting that task taken care of. It is truly appreciated by the board and by the parents. So if there's nothing else, that is the end of the board self-evaluation. Give yourselves a pat on the back. All right, moving on in the agenda, future meetings and events. Ms. Sagata-Jones.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the board, excuse me. Sorry, I'm struggling with asthma again. You'll see October 6th special meeting. We just have the NSB travel requests, the AEL expenditure resolution that we'll bring for the board to adopt, and then the annual financial report deadline is October 15th, and that will be presented at that time.
All right, are there any other items that board members would like to see added to a future agenda at this time? All right, thank you. Well, moving on, the summary of current events. Ms. Sagata-Jones.
Yes, good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to recognize on the back walls, always look at our academic and work that's there in our schools that are represented, our Burton Horizons. The Burton Horizon, thank you so much for your work. Really, the week's been, since we last met, really committed to classroom walkthroughs, meeting with our principals, visiting, like I said, passing out sunflower seeds, trying to get volunteers, and really a lot of time's been devoted to looking at what we need to do with our bonds and things. And Mr. Garrigan's work on that has been phenomenal, so I thank him for that. Really want to say thank you, Ms. Pimentel, for recognizing the reading and math adoption. Walking classrooms and seeing those materials being used, I'm really pleased with that. I really do like the new science materials, and kids seem very much engaged in those. So, and then I also look forward getting back to SPAC and SAC and STAC meetings and listening to the teachers and their feedback on the materials, and also just what they think next steps are and where they believe the priorities are in the strategic plan was always beneficial and always important. So again, thank you so much. That's all I have this evening.
All right, thank you. Governing board updates. Ms. Wilson, do you have anything new to share with us?
Well, just as always, a big thank you to all of you for the hard work that you do with our children, kiddos. I know you love that word. But also, a note on the preschool. I have a grandson that is in the preschool, and so I've had a chance to go into the classroom there, and I'm just in awe of all the great things that they do, and he just loves it. There are a couple of screamers at first, but you know, they've gotten over that, and it's a wonderful campus. It really is. So I don't know if you'd ever have a chance to get on there, but it's a good one.
All right, thank you. Ms. Smith.
I just want to thank the board for doing the board self-evaluations. It's always a good thing to do and to discuss and see how we can improve. And also just want to, thank our administration. Even though we do this board self-evaluation, I don't think it really has anything to do with like your job performance. We feel like you guys are fantastic. It's just, how can we just get better, be the best,
And we do take that way, Ms. Smith. We all in this room are lifelong learners, and we want to do what's best, and we'll make those improvements. And we want to make sure we're communicating those things well to all staff members and to our community. As you know, we do appreciate this board. We have an amazing board, and we know that you're supportive. But we are passionate about our work too, and as everybody is, and we want to share what we do as well, and any misunderstandings or anything that we can improve on, always welcome to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, and I just, applaud all of our principals for hanging in there and, and keep up the good work.
All right, thank you.
Did you just skip me?
Not this time. I thought about it, though.
No, I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work you guys do. We went through COVID, and we've come on the other side of COVID, and it's still just a very strange world that we all live in. And at this time, I know that we have a football tournament coming up on the 4th, unless weather changes any of those dates. Sadly, I will not be able to be in attendance this time. So good luck to whoever ends up playing on that day.
All right, thank you. Ms. Pimentel.
Thanks again all around. I think we're all kind of in awe of all of our staff. Every single day you guys come in and you make a difference in someone's lives. And we all appreciate you more than we'll ever say. And we wish we could pay you what we think you should be getting. But unless things change and we vote for pro-public education people, we'll do our best to make sure that you get as much as you can. Thank you to the administration for your work on the strategic plan. That's always such a task, but I appreciate that. I think it's great, and I'd like to make a pledge to try to get around to the coffee talks and to get around to all the schools. I think that is important, and to try to get around as much as we can and say hello, so that I don't walk away and forget who I was talking to, so I can go back and say, okay, that was so-and-so, and I talked to them, and I said their name 3 times, and now I remember their name. So I will do my best to get out there as much as I can.
All right, thank you. I would just like to say some words of appreciation to the board. It was a long process. I mean, everyone had to read the self-evaluation and then go through and make all their notes, and then we kind of went through every question, and we talked about our disagreements. And as a board, you get 5 people in a room, you're not supposed to agree on everything. If you do, you're probably dysfunctional, and somebody is definitely lying to you. So I thought it was good that we had some discussion in there, even things we didn't agree on, and that's perfectly fine. That's how it should be. That's how it's supposed to be. When you have those conversations, well, I think we could do this, and then it's okay to disagree, and I believe that's ideally that we were able to go through that process and not at each other's throat, and not make this a 4-hour meeting instead of a 2-hour meeting. I'd just like to say I really appreciate the 4 of you and what you each bring to the table here. And with that, again, just like everybody else, thank you to everybody here. Thank you to all the principals out here. I apologize personally if I didn't get a chance, I haven't had a chance to personally meet you, or if I see you again and I've already met you and I act like I don't remember you, that's just the game I'm playing with you so that you can reintroduce yourself to me, because second impressions are the best. No, honestly, I'm really horrible with names and I'm really horrible with faces. So I apologize if I forget people that I know very close, and then, even my kids, sometimes I'll yell at, like everyone with multiple kids, like, hey, you just go take out the trash. So it happens. So I try my best. I'm not very good at it, but I try. And before we leave, I'd like to leave you on this lighthearted note that when we all came in here, and we don't usually sit in a round table sort of configuration like this. When I came in here, somebody had lowered my chair all the way down, and so when Miss Sagata-Jones sat down next to me, I had to look up to her, and I'm like, something's wrong. Miss Sagata-Jones had a growth spurt, or as I said earlier, I think she had her knees done because now she's taller. But thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great